Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com, and we're here today with episode number 24 in our incredible new tutorial series where you're going to learn Fusion 360 or you're going to die trying. What I'm going to need you to do is pour yourself a nice tall glass of ice cold coffee. That would be straight up black coffee poured over ice, no sugar, no sweeteners, none needed. And as you're pouring your coffee, as always, I want to give a shout out to you guys who are helping me out over at Patreon. It is your support and your encouragement that keeps this great content coming. You guys that are not helping out yet, take a look down in the description. There is a link over to my Patreon account. Think about hopping on over there and hooking a brother up. But enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's talk about what I am going to teach you today. What I'm going to teach you is how to properly replace the extruder nozzle on your Creality Ender 3 version 2 printer. Now, while I am focused on that printer in this class, the things that I'm teaching you here would be appropriate for any printer that you are using. Sound good? All right, let's get started. Well, now in an earlier lesson, I gave a whole lesson on how important it was to have a clean and fresh and undamaged extruder nozzle on your printer. And I also showed you how you can end up with partially clogged or deformed extruder nozzles and how that can impact a wide variety of issues associated with print quality. It can affect the first layer adhesion. It can affect things like stringers. It can affect the overall print quality. And a lot of times it's not a matter of failed prints. It's just a matter of you start seeing it's harder to get that first layer to adhere. It's harder to get the print to print properly. You just start having these various problems and you go out and start buying expensive upgrades to your printer when it's really just a simple matter of replacing the print nozzle. You can get these extruder nozzles for under $1 each. I've got a link down below to like 20 packs that are really good, really affordable, and it just makes it easy to routinely replace your print nozzle. Now, I did get a comment on that earlier lesson where I talked about the importance of having a clean, fresh, undamaged extruder nozzle, and somebody left a very insightful comment suggestion. Maybe you should show us how to properly change the extruder nozzle, and that's what I'm going to do today, because you want to do it correctly, because if you don't do it correctly, you can actually damage your printer and you can then cause more problems. And the damage that you can do is a very hard problem to fix, that if you misalign or if you damage your gantries or your hot end, you're going to have a really difficult and a really expensive problem to fix. So I want to try to show you how to do it properly. Sound good? Okay, I hope it does. Now, I have reconfigured my studio a little better to make it a little bit easier for me to show things on the Creality printer. And I want to kind of show you my new studio setup and then see if it makes sense to you. Before, I was trying to kind of shoot over my shoulder where you were looking over my shoulder. But now what I have done, because it just makes it a little easier for me to work, I am shooting, the printer is to my left. So you see the printer is over here. So when you see me put my hands over here, you are looking kind of, the camera is in front of me and to the right, so you're kind of looking at a front, kind of a side view, a front to side view, and I'm hoping that will work for you. And then that's too far. That allows me to create a view where you can see me and you can see what I'm doing. Then what I've also done is I've added a webcam so you can see a close-up up here in the upper right of exactly what I'm working on. And then this webcam can be moved around to give you a close-up view of whatever specific thing is that I'm working on. Does that look like it will work for you? Because I know that I can create studio shots that make you nauseous, like if it makes you feel like that you're bending over and looking back, and I don't want to do that. But I'm hoping, just remember the print is to my left, this is my left hand, you can see it coming in. Leave a comment down below, is this studio shot working for you? Because it makes it easy for me to do the manipulations that I need to do, and I hope it gives you a clear view. Does that sound good? Okay, I hope it does. Now again, I've got a link to the extruder nozzles that I am using, and what I like about this kit that I refer you to is it's low cost. I don't know, depending on where you are and how Amazon is pricing, it's 10 to 15 bucks. And what I like about it is it comes with this little socket that fits perfectly the nozzle. Now the Creality Ender printer comes with this freakishly small little wrench, but the problem with this wrench is it's not a very strong metal, and the first time I used it, it kind of both rounded the wrench a little bit, and it also rounded the brass extruder nozzle, and then I couldn't get in and loosen it because they were both rounded, and then I was trying to put it in an angle like this and then loosen it that way, and then you're really not able to focus on doing things right. I am really hopeful that this little socket will make things work much easier than this little cheapo wrench. Now, not criticizing Creality, it's a great value on their printer, but you know, we need to replace this, and it's kind of neat when we get a nice wrench with our extruder nozzles. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. And what I kind of pointed out in that earlier lesson, what lesson was that? That was lesson number 21, where I think I really talked a lot about the importance of having a good extruder nozzle. But what I'm going to do is say that the first step that I like to do when I am going to replace the nozzle, put on another extruder, what I like to do is I like to inspect the extruder nozzle that I am going to put on, because you've got a bag of these things, you know, they're very low cost. You want to make sure that you're starting with a clean one, and it's very possible that you could have one in the bag that's not perfect, and then you put it on and you think, I've got a brand new extruder nozzle, but is it really a good one? I've shown you guys the little USB microscope that I am using, and I've got a link to this down below in the description. I've seen a lot of you guys have ordered this, and it is useful for doing things like inspection of the new printer nozzle. I like to inspect the extruder nozzle that I take off. How damaged was it? Was I having partial clogs developing? Was I getting that carbonization of the filament? Was the tip clean? Because you want to see when you take it off, well, maybe I could have gotten 5-10 more prints out of that one. Maybe I don't need to replace it every 10 prints. Maybe I can go every 20 prints. But having a good metrology tool, having a good little microscope can make a big difference. Now, I know a lot of you guys maybe don't have the resources. That's okay. The focus is on buying the pack of extruder nozzles. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So let's come over here. I have a handy view here of the microscope stage. What I like to do is I like to have a little piece of paper, and I put that little piece of paper like a little cardstock underneath the microscope, and then I put the sample that I want to inspect on that little piece of paper, and that way I can slide the nozzle in place and slide it around much easier. If I try to do it with my finger, then it just knocks over the little nozzle. So this is the new nozzle that we are proposing to use, and let's go ahead and get a really close-up view of it. And what you can see here is the tip is perfectly clean. Particularly the hole is perfectly round. There's no little shards or no little elements of brass coming in over the hole. And so when I look at this, I would say that is a very nice one. And then similarly, I like to inspect the extruder nozzle that I'm taking off after I take it off. Now, actually, the extruder nozzle in my printer right now is a fairly new one, so I am not anticipating that we would have any issues there. I'm not anticipating we would have any issues there. I'm making this video showing you how to do the change out. Makes sense? Okay, good. Now, what you're going to need is you're going to need the little kind of like medium-sized Allen wrench that comes with the Ender, and I can go ahead. I've got my vernier calipers here, and I can measure it. This one is the one that's about 2 millimeters. What I'm reading here is it looks like 1.96 1.96. So the one that's about 2 millimeters, that's the one that you're going to want to use. And now the first thing that you need to do is over here on the hot end, you need to take this plastic cover off. So the little nut to do that is on the back side here. And so let's see if I can come in. And I have to get to a little bit of an awkward angle here. I'm still kind of acclimating to these positions, and I don't have it in the perfect position. I have it where you can see it, so it's not necessarily exactly where it should be to make it easy for me to get to. It would be nice if I could see the nut. Let's see, it seems to be a little easier to get it in this way. Okay, let's see if I can. Yeah, I've got it loosened. And so I'm loosening it up. I'm taking that out. Okay. And pro tip, this is a fairly small little nut there, or element there. And so you don't want to lose it. You certainly don't want to drop it on the carpet. Now at this point, we should be able to just slide this off, I think. Yeah. I'm trying to make sure there is not another one there. Okay, yeah. So there's only one. And you've got to be careful because this is connected to, this whole thing is connected to the wires. And so the fan is in here. And because the fan is in here, you've got to be kind of careful because you don't want to mess those wires up. Okay, so now I have that out of the way. Now what I like to do with that loose where I can access things, now you can come in and this little silicone cover you are going to need to take off. And so the little silicone cover you are going to need to pull off, and then you put that down where you can keep it handy. Okay, now what I will say is at this point, what we need to do is we need to heat up the hot end. And the reason you want to do that is a lot of times that nozzle is kind of locked on, and it's locked on because you've got the filament that was hot and now it's cooled and it is sort of gripping that extruder nozzle, and it's a little bit hard to get the extruder nozzle off, and so heating it up makes the job a little bit easier. So over here we're going to come in. Remember, I have the upgraded firmware from, I think it was the last lesson. I think the last lesson, lesson number, was it lesson number? Let's see, what lesson was it? Lesson number 23. No, it was lesson number 22, where it was lesson number 22 where I showed you how to install that firmware. Okay, and I definitely recommend that you go back to lesson number 22 if you didn't watch it and get the upgraded firmware. Now, the only thing is this firmware might be slightly different with the menus, but if you haven't upgraded the firmware, you just need to go for your firmware and you need to heat up the hot end. So I'm going to come over on mine to the prepare. I'm going to click on prepare, scroll down, and then you can see the preheat. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to preheat for PLA like that. And then we can watch down here and see when it's getting up to, about 180 would be enough to have the thing come off nicely. Now, what I want to show you is you don't want to melt this plastic cover, so you want to, first of all, not. Okay, I'm getting some unpleasant fan noise there. I think my next lesson is going to probably be on replacing the fan because I think I have a bearing going out on the fan. But I'm just going to go ahead and hopefully that whine noise isn't too bad. But the bottom line is you don't want to have your plastic cover come down and touch your hot end, because if you do, what is going to happen is you're going to melt that hot end. So you want to let that plastic not touch the hot end. I think our next lesson is going to be how to replace the fan. because actually these fans don't last forever. And when the fan isn't working properly, you're not getting the proper cooling as you're printing, and that can be a problem as well. Okay, that's good. It stopped. You can see it's getting hot. It looks like that we are up to 188 out of 190. So that actually looks pretty good. We're hot, and you can see the filament is kind of oozing through. I'm going to see if I can retract the filament up here, because I don't want the filament, I'm going the wrong way. I don't want the filament getting in my way, so I'm retracting the filament. The head's hot. I've retracted the filament, okay, and I have the plastic case away from the hot end. Now, this is very important. What you don't want to do, you don't want to come in and put your little wrench on and just try to loosen that. Why? Because it could be on there pretty tight, and you can really torque it. And when you do that, you are torquing both the hot end and your X gantry. And if you get something misaligned or bent or out of shape when you do that, you really can create a very serious alignment problem that's going to be very hard to fix. You might have to come in and start replacing parts if you do that. So you need something like a crescent wrench like this. And what you need to make sure that you do is that you hold this, okay, that you hold this like this, so that as you are loosening, you are taking that torque in your hand and you're not letting that torque move the gantry. Does that make sense? So I've got this where I'm holding it. Now I'm going to come in righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, right? So I need to loosen it. So I'm going to come in and get this on the extruder. And let's see. You don't want to hit the wires with this wrench, so you've got to kind of come in like this, and then I kind of pull them together, and that loosened up. So once it broke, now I can put this down, and what I can do is I can come in at this point. Let's see if we can go like this, and yeah, it is just coming right out, right on out. Okay, boom. Extraction complete. And then remember, also very importantly, the hot end is what? It is hot. So you want to be very, very careful, and you don't want to, the hot end is very hot, and you don't want to burn your fingers, particularly when I do this little maneuver, because my finger is going to be very close to the hot end. So I want to be careful not to burn my finger. Very, very careful, because you can really hurt yourself when you do this, okay? The second thing is, this is brass. It's very soft. You don't want to cross-thread it. You don't want to cross-thread it. So you want to make sure that it goes in, and you should feel it going in easy. Okay, so we're coming here. I can kind of feel that hole there, and it is going very easily, very nicely. Don't go like 3 or 4 times. You don't want to keep going, because you increase the chance that you're going to burn your finger. Now I'm going to come in like this. While it's loose, I'm just going to be doing it. I'm not going to be torquing it, but now it's tightening up. So I'll come over here, get it like this, and bear down on it. No, what do I want to do? I want to bring this in, okay? And this time it's going to be righty-tighty. Okay, so let me get this just right. Okay, make sure you have it all the way up too. Make sure you have it all the way up. And now I'm going to get this, and then I am going to, instead of pulling them towards each other, I'm going to pull them away from each other. And you want to get that in there pretty darn tight like that. Okay, yeah, ow. Note to self, the little socket does heat up on this end, and you can burn yourself that way too. That was just a little bit of a little burn. I didn't hurt myself with that, but you want to be careful with that. Now let's go ahead and let's stop the preheating. Let's see, how do we do that? Let's see if I hit it again. No. I guess I had preheat mode both on, so it heated up the table as well, so you could probably change that if you want. Let's see if there is somewhere. Where is the cool down? Okay, cool down is back here. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the cool down. So let's give that a second to cool down before we put the case back on. Now what I want to do is this nozzle that I took off, I want to take a look at it and see what it looks like under the scope and see if I really needed to change this or not. Now the problem is, well, it's not really a problem, but on the back side it's got a little filament. So I'm going to see if I can maybe get that filament off so it will sit straight up and I won't have to hold it with my fingers, but a little bit of a rounded bottom there. So let's see if this will stand up for me. And it doesn't look like it will, so I'm going to just have to use my hand to hold it and then see if we can come in and do the inspection. Okay, so I'll come over here, and when I inspect it, that looks really like a pretty clean nozzle. Now, if you look at that orange, there's not a hole there because that is the old filament. But what you see is the image of the orange filament. It's orange. You might be using green filament. Yours would be green. But what you want to see is the colored filament. You want it to make a circle round. And what you want to really be looking for is I wonder if I can get any closer than that to it. Any higher magnification. Yeah, that's pretty good. Let's go to the main view. And what you see is you just have this nice circular round piece of filament, and you're not seeing carbonization. Now what I might say is that like here to the right you can see that it's not perfectly round, and so we might be getting a little bit of carbonization there, that you see that you're not just seeing a completely round orange filament indicating a completely round hole. We might have a tiny bit of carbonization occurring there, which would mean that maybe it was a good thing that we did it. You see that one little element now at about the 2 o'clock position. That I don't think would affect print quality, but what you can usually see is as you're printing and as you're doing different things, you can begin to get the whole closing in on itself because of carbonized filament around the outer edge. I think this one would have been good for a number of different prints, but I'm not going to put it back on. I am going to, I'm going to kind of stick with the plan, and I'm going to change the nozzle out. Okay, now what we need to do is, I think that we need to now come and put this back on. Okay. And so what you've got to do is you've just got to see that this, let me see a good view. That's a good view. Okay, do you see this needs to go in this slot here? And you can see that I melted that a little bit, so I really need a new case. And then over here there's a clip, so I like to kind of bring it like this, and you've just got to kind of feel it and then snap it. And the thing is, you want to make sure that it's snapped on this side and this side. So you got to really, and again, don't press this way. You never want to put any force on this gantry. You want to come like this and really make sure that it is in there. And now I forgot what? I forgot this. So let's see if we can back up, bring this back off, and then we're going to put the little silicone thing on. The opening goes towards the place where the wires come out, and you really want to get this seated on there well, and still be careful because this is a little bit warm, and make sure that it is coming over the top all the way around and on there nice and snugly. Okay, so now I'm gonna come in. It's a little harder to get it now with that, so I've got it on this side, and then I come on that side and I get the snap. All right, so that's on there good. Now what I want you to see is I've got the little nut here. Okay, and then I'm going to come in, and again, it would be easier if I had it towards me, where I could see I'm operating a little bit blind here, but I think I can get it. And this you don't have to really bear down and tighten hard. I think we're probably driving into plastic, and so you just want to get it snug, but you don't want to over tighten it because it would be pretty easy to strip out there. Okay, so that is good. We'll come back to this view. Okay, that looks pretty good. And we have replaced the nozzle. Now I'm going to show you next week, I'm going to show you probably a lesson on how I get a perfect print every time. The things that I do every time that I'm going to make a print to get perfect adhesion on that first level, and how to get a good print every time. But one of those things is you want to check your nozzle. And so since we have just changed this nozzle, let's see if this will work. Okay, I think you'll be able to see it there. What you want to do is, if the nozzle is working perfectly, when you do an extrusion, the filament should come kind of like straight down. If it's coming and biasing to one side, that means you're developing a partial clog or damage to the extruder nozzle over on the side that it's biasing towards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, and just remember, we start here, we go to prepare, and then I come down to preheat, and then under preheat I'm going to preheat for PLA. Okay, and you can see that it had cooled down, and so we're going to wait for it to come back to about 190. Now let's see if I do have a way to really show you the nozzle. Okay, that looks pretty good there. Let me see, do you think I should focus that a little bit? Let's see if we can focus. I want to just really try to get perfect focus. You know, the autofocus on these little webcams just does not work. There, I think now you can see that tip just perfectly. So I'm going to say okay. And then we're just going to sip a little coffee as we are waiting for our printer to heat up. Remember, we extracted the filament, so it's going to take a little bit before it starts flowing. And then as you're doing this test, you don't want to feed it too quickly or overfeed it. Now, when it first comes out, it might kind of stick itself, and it might come out a little bit not perfectly right at first, but after you run a little filament through it, as much as possible, we want to see that coming straight down. Okay, we're up to 167. We'll go ahead and let it get to 190, and then we will move forward. Let's see if I can. The tension mounts. Do you guys do this? Do you check your filament extrude for a clean extrude before you print? You really should. And like I say, next week I'll be telling you everything that I do before I get a print. And when I do this, I consistently get good prints. Okay, I think we're about there. And so it's always hard for me to remember which direction we turn. Maybe it's this way. I think maybe counterclockwise is how we want to go to extrude. Then I start losing. Yeah, it's going the right way. Okay, we should see it shortly. And again, don't force it. You know, don't go too fast. Just slow and steady here. Okay, I'm feeling resistance. Okay, so you see when it first started, it had a little bias. And also, if I come back to this view, you can see that now it's starting to touch, the end of the filament is starting to touch the build plate, and that can lead it to not come straight down a little bit. So I want to kind of try to maybe just pull that off, and then let's come back over to this view, and then now it should start again counterclockwise. Okay, and that is really coming out very cleanly. That if I look right up here where it's coming out, it's wanting to come out straight. It's not curling back up on itself. Okay, and You see, why is it going crazy like that? Because it is hitting the build plate. And this is just something, I don't have a clogged one to show you, but when I look at this, it really is coming out cleanly. Why did it make that mess? Because I fed it too quickly. It's something that you've got to just kind of develop a feel for. Also, the fan can move it a little bit, but when I look right at the tip, it's wanting to come down straight. Also, when I'm looking closely at the filament, I'm not seeing little jagged things. I'm not seeing little round things. Now, I can actually come in and inspect this filament and see if it looks nice, nicely formed. So let's come back over here and let's see if we can come down closer on it. And now let's inspect what we just extruded. Okay, now if you've got some damage, on your tip, or if you've got a partial clog, you can see it when you inspect the filament. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it there where you can see it. And do you see how nice and round and smooth that is? It is nice, it is round, it is smooth. You don't see any little flaking, or you don't see any little defects as you look at this. And so you can see that that's making a very, very nice little strand. That would print very, very well. And let's come back over here and look at this again. Counterclockwise. It is just really wanting to come out well. Again, what happened was it hit the build plate and then it didn't flow down freely. So I want to kind of keep that from happening. And then I come here and it is coming down very, very nicely. And so coming down nice and straight is really good. And I wish I could show you more clearly, because you see that I'm getting globs. I'll push that glob out. Now, you see how when you start extruding, you get a little bit of globbiness. That's why you make those smear lines, to get rid of that. But as I go here, I can see that I'm getting a clean feed, and I inspect the filament, and I can see that that looks good when I look at the filament under the microscope. Okay, I wish that part of the demonstration had gone a little bit better, because when I set it up, get it way away from the build plate, and then just feed it slowly, it should come almost straight down. It should come almost straight down, and it shouldn't be curling up on itself, or it shouldn't be coming and biasing to one side or the other. And that's something that I like to look at. I think that you can get a little effect from the fan as well. Okay, guys, number one thing in having good, clean prints every time is to use a fresh, clean extruder nozzle. I change mine out about every 15 prints. Why? Because the extruder nozzle is under $1. You can see that you can change it out in few minutes, just a few minutes. And under $1 for an extruder nozzle is a lot more affordable than wasting filament on doing prints that you're getting, prints that don't stick, prints that don't adhere, failed prints, all that sort of stuff. That costs a lot in filament, and the filament is much more expensive than these little nozzles are. So I believe that the thing that I've done to improve my print quality more than anything else is to just have bags of these little extruder nozzles and to freely replace them. Also, like if I'm doing a really important print, I might just go ahead and I might change the extruder nozzle out then. And then, like I say, these little microscopes I find very useful, because I not only can look at the extruder nozzle, the quality of the strand that I'm generating, the filament strand that I'm generating out of the extruder nozzle. I also use the little microscope to inspect the parts that I'm building and looking at the quality of the parts that I am building. Guys, I hope that you are finding these lessons useful, and maybe you think I'm spending too much time on tweaking the printer and printing techniques, but I will tell you, I am on my fifth or sixth or seventh 3D printer. And my life of 3D printing is getting a printer, it doing amazing things, and then it starts not doing things well, and then just end up throwing it in the corner. The thing that I have found that is the secret, at least for me, is to keep a really clean, fresh extruder nozzle on your printer. I hope you guys are having as much fun taking these lessons as I am making them. Like I say, the next lesson that I will do is probably to kind of give you a rundown of the things that I do with my printer before I print every single time, because I think that we get lazy and I think we get sloppy, and then I think that we end up not getting good prints, and then sometimes we can actually do things that are not good for the printer when we're not very methodical about preparing our job for a successful print. If you guys did not watch, what was it? I already said it once. It was lesson number 22 to get the upgraded firmware. The upgraded firmware is free, and the upgraded firmware allows you to manually compensate for a lack of flatness in your build plate. And what I see on these Creality Ender printers, and really a lot of these lower cost printers, the print bed is not perfectly flat. It's kind of cup shaped. And what that firmware does is, without having to buy any other hardware, it allows you to compensate for the lack of perfect flatness of your bed. And you cannot level out a problem of a non-flat print bed. Does that make sense? And I think rather than going in and spending money to get a very, very precision, perfect print bed, it's easier to just compensate using the firmware. Now, in the future, we will be putting the touch sensor that will automatically do that compensation for you. But as I showed you in the earlier lesson, you can do it manually in just about 3-4 minutes. And so you don't need to buy that auto bed flattening compensation thing. You can just do it manually. I have it. I'll show you how to put it on later. But the biggest bang for the buck is to upgrade the firmware, which is free. Okay guys, if you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up. Be sure to leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys are finding. Have any of you guys started changing out your extruder nozzle? I know quite a few of you have gotten the little microscope. Let me know if you guys are enjoying using it. And then, like I say, next week what I'll probably do is show you the things that I do before every single print. Guys, I appreciate your support. I appreciate your help. Comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this with other people, because the world needs more people doing engineering and fewer people sitting around watching silly cat videos. Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you guys later.